Protesters to march over mandatory masking of school children. Statements given to the police by accused in trans sex worker murder case deemed inadmissible. A clean shooting victim tells court he does not know who shot him. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo. Yannick here, joined by Julian, Bonnici, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. Today we have a special guest in the studio. Bjorn Formosa from ALS Malta is here to speak with us about the work on a fundraising telethon taking place this Sunday to make Derby onto a reality. So on to our first story, Julian.
Yes, as if you thought COVID-19 was going away anytime soon. It isn't. People are set to gather in Valletta tomorrow morning to protest against the COVID-19 rule obliging children to wear masks at school. So an event page actually says that the protesters are going to gather in Triton Fountain and march all the way up to Merchant Street outside the Health Ministry. And they're hoping to take their concerns directly to Minister Chris Fearn himself. Organizer Kevin Falson sort of urged attendees to stick to the topic. We all know how these protests have turned out in the past before, where it's sort of a hodgepodge of different opinions, where there's no real, singular thought. However, Falson said, what we have to focus on was, quote, safeguarding our children who are unable to defend themselves against this tyranny. Now, the event, Falson says, is going to be held in a peaceful manner, and they'll walk silently, holding up placards high for all to see, no shouting and no drama. Falson himself said he's already written to Health Minister Chris Fearn and Superintendent for Public Health Charmaine Gauci, inviting them to the protest to hopefully present some scientific evidence in favour of the masks. The event will also be attended by Jean-Paul Soler, a family doctor who has voiced scepticism over COVID-19 restrictions, and Rita Bonnici will attend as distinguished guests. Now, I don't know about you, Yannick, I'm sort of a bit conflicted about this whole process, right? I don't have a medical background, I don't have a medical degree on anything, so I'm always going to be inclined to agree maybe with the authorities are saying. However, what this does prove is that just as people are getting vaccinated, we have all these really good measures, all the numbers are looking positively. People really need to start getting some better explanations from the authorities as to why certain decisions are being introduced or remaining to be in place. I think all that does really and truly is create more skepticism amongst people, amongst the health authorities, what they can and cannot do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, as you say, on the one hand, I really understand people who maybe have had enough of the mask, especially when it comes to children, going to school, they're socializing, being able to see facial expressions is a very important part of their development. That being said, I do also understand that, we're not, this pandemic isn't yet behind us, and, we're coming into winter. We know that cases tend to spike in winter, so maybe there is some scope for caution initially, but we'll see. Hopefully there'll be a resolution to this very, very soon. On to our next story. Statements given to the police by one of the men accused of the murder of trans sex worker Simone Grech 16 years ago have been confirmed inadmissible in court by the appeals court. So for those who don't remember, the murder took place some 16 years ago when Grech was reported missing. She was found a week later in a field in Marsa. An autopsy even revealed that she had been stabbed 17 times. Two men, Libyan national Ismail Habesh and Tunisian national Faisal Mawhachi, were both charged in court in relation to the murder. Now, despite the murder having taken place 16 years ago, proceedings are still in the pre-trial stage, and Habesh had requested that 6 of the 7 statements he gave to the police be excluded from his trial by jury. The request was accepted by the criminal court, but the AG filed an appeal, and that appeal has now been decided, with the court confirming the first decision. At the time, the right to a lawyer when you're being interrogated was not a part of Maltese law, and in fact only came in 2010 after efforts for its introduction by then nationalist MP Franco De Bono. Because of this, the court observed that 6 of the 7 statements that had been given to the police are inadmissible. They also observed that the fact that when he was interrogated, the police had not yet found Grech's body, and therefore the person had not been told that he was being investigated for murder. This decision obviously means that once the trial starts, it is only the last statement, which was given to the police in 2013, that can be presented as evidence in court.
Yeah, really tragic news to a tragic story. Just a small point before I give a little bit of an opinion. I was actually reading some reports about when Simone Grech was murdered, and just seeing the language used, you know, everyone calling him, calling her by a he, calling him Simon, you know, really sort of mixing around the terminology, and it's actually so positive to see how far we've come, even in terms of reporting on that matter. However, I think really crucially there are two main points over here. Number one, how does a murder case take 16 years? I mean, quite frankly, it's ridiculous, both to Simone, both to her family members, you know. I think the judges and the magistrates who are overseeing this case really have a lot of questions to answer, and for me personally, I really don't think they're fit for purpose. You know, 16 years, somebody could have been born, sat for their O-levels and is on the way to junior college, you know, so it's actually pretty insane. The second is all about poor police work, right? You know, there are many good police officers out there. However, there are still issues with training our police officers to adequately deal with murders and crimes of this nature, you know. Hopefully, you know, Angela Gaffar, I'm sure he's done stellar work so far, is taking note, but mistakes like this cannot be allowed to happen anymore. On to our next story, another court story related to this. A victim who was grievously injured after being shot 3 times in IKLIN earlier this month has testified that he did not see the person who shot him, even though he was shot facing the shooter into his cheek and into his upper chest. 55-year-old Vincent Schwireb, a known fraudster by nickname Censo Loranjo, was testifying in court today during the compilation of evidence against Ryan Sultana, the alleged shooter. So we had some really interesting details actually in the court that the relationship between Schwireb and Sultana actually predates the shooting by quite a while, and they had actually attended some sessions together. You know, it's actually very complicated. Now, Schwireb on the questioning told the court that while he definitely did not see who shot him or even where the shot came from. Now, this was picked up by lawyer George Camilleri from the AG's office, who sort of told him, hey, listen, you were shot from the front and it was in front of you, but still Schwireb continued to insist that he did not know where the gunshot came from. Now, quite funny, like working against Schwireb's statement is that there had been eyewitnesses who have said they actually saw the shooting take place, while Sultana's grandfather today told the court that when he arrived on scene, he started berating his grandchild for shooting the man. So obviously make of that what you will. I really don't know what kind of game Schwireb is playing. Up until then, now Sultana has been released on bail against a personal guarantee of 4,000 and a deposit of 3,000 euros. Obviously, we're going to see how this case is going to develop. What do you think about it all, yeah?
No, it's one of these strange cases. Every time we get an update, it tends to kind of be a lot different to what we're expecting. It's very clear that there's a lot more to this case and the relationship between the two men than we know of already. So I'm guessing that as this case progresses, we're going to find out more and more about it. So stay tuned and we can follow proceedings on Lovin Malta. Journalist activist Manuel DELIA has said he will be taking up a 6-month residency program for journalists placed at risk because of their work, organized by the European Centre for Press and Media Freedom. So earlier this week, DELIA hit the headlines when it was revealed that he was leaving the country over fears for his safety after having received threats from criminals both within and outside the prison. While many have expressed solidarity with DELIA, an article which appeared in the Shift News raised doubts about the real reason for his move abroad. In fact, Shift News editor Caroline Muscat suggested that the real reason DELIA was moving abroad was because he was enrolling in a paid program, which she too had been offered a place in. Responding to Muscat, DELIA clarified that he was indeed enrolling in this residency program, which he said was specifically intended for journalists at risk because of their work. He said that the European Centre for Press and Media Freedom had in fact gotten in touch with him some weeks ago in the midst of a cyberbullying campaign against DELIA and other activists, and had offered him a place in the program. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, and there were various websites being spoofed, fake emails being sent, and as DELIA has said himself, you know, he'd been receiving anonymous calls in the middle of the night, quite severe bullying. In explaining his reasons, DELIA said that he was first of all, he's been a target because he's a government critic, and he's been a target for a while and has even had his wife assaulted as a result. Obviously, the cyber attacks and the harassment in recent weeks had made him and his family's life quite unbearable, especially considering that they have young children. He also finally pointed out that with the election around the corner, he could not exclude that both Labour and Nationalist Party activists would take the opportunity to lash out at him and his family. Very sad to see that a journalist is having to move abroad because of these things.
Yes, no, and even uglier seeing sort of journalists go at each other's throats when really we should really all be protecting each other, particularly when we face threats. Now, seeing the comments and stuff like that, I really do feel people are missing the point entirely on this case. Really and truly, we had a journalist who was blown up in this country, you know, something we all remember every single day, and rather than sort of supporting a journalist saying that he's facing threats, we're quickly to sort of dismiss his claims as sort of either an attempt to sort of boost his profile and whatever it is. Really and truly, you know, we should give DELIA all the support we can give. And really, you know, let the police do their stellar work into catching anyone who's actually committing these threats against DELIA or any other journalist, for that matter, Caroline Muscat included. Onto our last story, a really actually positive story about a pilot project in Malta currently underway to help refugees and asylum seekers better integrate in Malta. So the project, led by MOAS, has seen Samuel, a 21-year-old asylum seeker from South Sudan, moving with a young family with 2 children residing in Valletta. Samuel sort of recounted how difficult his life was actually before participating in the project, detailing how at points he could not even afford drinking water on a day-to-day basis. So what he sort of explained was, listen, in the center he couldn't find a job and was literally just depending on subsidies from AWAS, which is the government body that looks after asylum seekers in Malta. Thankfully, his fate changed when he actually gave an interview to the Times of Malta detailing his plight, and MOAS and the family involved sort of reached out to help. A year later, Samuel is in a really much better place and sort of says how his circumstances have completely changed. In exchange for the hospitality, Samuel helps the family with sort of daily tasks, and along sort of helps, you know, act like an older brother to these young children, something that he's actually really enjoying and sort of finding newfound confidence and skills along the way. This sort of safety net, if you'd call it, has allowed actually this 21-year-old to continue studying at MCAS, where he's hoping to actually become a doctor or a medical professional. So some really positive news, a really, I think, incredible initiative, you know, geared to help somebody integrate better in Malta. At the end of the day, you know, whether we like it or not, people are coming, and we really should have proper policies in place, proper initiatives in place that are going to let people stand on their 2 feet, be able to become, you know, a functioning member of Maltese society and a contributing taxpayer, rather than ending up on the streets, homeless, you know, all the crime that comes with it. You know, we're giving someone the tools to actually make a difference for their lives and for the country. For anybody who's interested out there, you know, to helping provide support and housing for refugees, MOAS is willing to provide all the assistance and mentoring that you need, because obviously it's going to be a tough challenge. However, it's really rewarding, you know, to help somebody who really desperately needs it, you know, leaving all of the stuff that they have behind to resettle in Malta. Just one quick point why it's so important. Remember, everyone out there, if you're a resident at the Hull Far or any open centre or closed centre on the island, you can stay there for a year at most, meaning once you leave, you're sort of on your feet. A lack of financial support, a real lack of access to the rental market or finding a job. So really, initiatives like this really do help. Well done to the family for sort of leading by example.
Yeah, I think stories like this always show us how with a bit of effort, what is often made out to be a problem without a solution can actually become something that benefits both the local community and also migrants who arrive on our shores. It also kind of begs the question as to why we don't have a more robust framework for integration, for helping refugees and asylum seekers sort of pick up their lives and sort of become members of society that contribute to society's well-being. So that's it from us for today, but stay tuned. We're going to cut to a short break, and then we're going to be back for an interview with Bjorn. Welcome back. So we're here with Bjorn Formosa from ALS Malta, who is going to be talking to about fundraising telethon that's going to take place on Sunday to help with the final fundraising for the opening of Dar Bjorn 2. So, l-ewwel grazzi tal-qajt l-istedina tagħna.
Grazzi Yannick nħobbos niġijaw.
Mela, forsi għal min ma jafx, insomma ma jafx, naħseb tidher ħafna, però inti ġej diagnosed bl-ALS fi 2015 u minn dak iż-żmien law dedikajt ħajtek biex tiġbor flus biex ftaħt.
Awareness nżidu
awareness.
għal-ħajja, eccetera.
Għaw ħafna minn forsi jgħidlek isma' jiena wara li nkun irċivejt diagnosi bħal dik. Kont tispiċċa għattal-ħin għalija nnifsi. Min fejn issib is-saħħa biex tagħmel dan ix-xogħol.
Fil-bidu l-ewwel ħsiebek kien tipo għatissa. Fadal li dal-aħħar 3 snin noqgħod nara Netflix u nikol popcorn u ndaddija. Bil-kwiet, però sekonda wara ġietni nofs idea u mbagħad minn dakinhar li ma ħaresniex iktar lura u llum qegħdin hawnhekk għandna proġett ta' 6 miljun euro li wasalna fl-aħħar fażi tiegħu biex nifinanzja u ħlaqas nemmek kważi. Ix-xogħol kollu li sar u l-proġetti kollha.
Mela, fil-verità din it-tieni
Din hija
tiftkula waħda fekket fi 2017.
Hija.
X'għalmetek din l-esperjenza?
Għalmet li suppost m'għandix nerġa' nagħmilha. Però le niċċajta fimni meta tara. Il-pazjenti sodisfatti bl-għajnuna u qed jieħdu s-servizzi li jisħoqilhom mbagħad. Tkun kontent, però ovvjament hemm ħafna learning curves fiha sitwazzjoni li titgħallem. Kif timprovja s-servizz, kif tiddilja man-nies, kif tagħmel l-affarijiet aħjar. U dan Dar Bjorn ovvjament huwa improvement upgrade tal-ewwel proġett. L-proġett kien proġett pilota. Fil-verità li naraw il-feedback x'ikun ta' nies biss immaġinajna li dan hemm l-ewwel dar, però konna żbaljati. Ħafna il-każijiet li huma immens, huma tremendi għandna numri. Kbar fil-waiting list li għandhom bżonn jirrikjedu. Dar Bjorn 2.
Fil-fatt kun ħanistaqsik x'ikemm nies għaddew minn Dar Bjorn 1 s'issa u x'ikemm nies qegħdin jistennew
Dar Bjorn 1 hija relattivament żgħira għaliex testa 13. Il-pazjent probablement mietu n-nies u ġew. Oħrajn urat mal-40 pazjent. L-familji tagħhom ovvjament li jkunu tisħoffru magħhom Dar Bjorn 2 ħajkollha. Capacity li ħatkun ikbar li ħatkun ta' 30 pazjent kollha b'kura intensiva li dawn huma fil-verità numri kbar għax laqas l-ITU. Ma tista' dawk in-nies aħna minn nies. Minflok qegħdin l-ITU qed netfgħuhom ġew. Dar residenzjali fil-komunità għandhom il-possibilità li jgħixu ħajja normali u independenti. Minkejja kollox.
x'ikemm nies hawn Malta jgħixu b'dil-kondizzjoni?
Infimmi, aħna l-ewwel bdejna. Dittek li hawn il-marda tal-ALS jew motor, neuron disease, però mbagħad beda ġej min bil-MS, min bil-Huntington's minn hekk. U jisemmu issa tirrifjuta l-għajnuna lil ħadd. U llum pratikament nistgħu ngħidu li nittargetjaw kep ta' eluf ta' nies. Fil-waqt nagħtu servizz lil xi 400 persuna x'aħna tajb li ngħidu lis-servizz. Jingħata wkoll fid-djar ta' nies mhux ġewwa Dar Bjorn. Biss Dar Bjorn fil-verità huwa perċentwali. Żgħira ħafna ta' xogħol li jsir il-maġġor parti. Jsir fid-djar ta' nies jekk ikollhom bżonn. Tajnuna aktar intensiva mbagħad jiġu medmiti ġewwa Dar Bjorn.
Kif tħossok tkun taf li qed daqshekk nies?
Dak jisib laqb biex għaddin imbirrasa xemmin. Nkun ekko ċentriku narġi zizzik not. B'dal affarijiet mhux l-iskop tiegħi. Skop tiegħi huwa li nagħmlu x-xogħol tagħna, nagħmlu sew, nagħmlu proġetti kbar biex nilħu iktar nies li għandhom bżonn lajnuna.
Dar Bjorn tu, xikem hemm bżonn flus? Il-proġett kollu, kemm ħajkun ġi jiswa?
Il-proġett kollu ħeġi jiswa jiswa bej 5.5 to 6 million hemm. Fadli 9 to 6,000 niġbru. Għalek semmejna l-kampanja 9 to 6. To finish għalli u anke għaliex ħajja. Id-data hija 26 ta' Settembru li hu jiġi. Nhar ħadd li jmiss li revedejta xi 5,555 darba. Però ovvjament n-nies jafu huwa proġett bżonn już huwa proġett nazzjonali wara dar Bjorn tu mbagħad naraw x'jiġri.
Fil-fatt dik kien waħda mill-mistoqsijiet ħajġu dar Bjorn tu antiċipajt.
Id-dokumentarju li għamilt ma Lovin Malta tilhom dar Bjorn 35 so għaw biex naħdmu naraw xem qoddimna, ovvjament sakemm mitina saħħa u nifsi nkomplu għaddejjinu.
Antiċipajtni fuq id-dokumentarju wkoll xkun ħan nistaqsik fuq. X'wassal għad-dokumentarju? X'huwa pjuttost dokumentarju personali maġda dejjaq lik.
Iva, dejjem x'tat. Kollabora ma Lovin Malta xkont napprezza l-puntu di vista differenti li jagħtu fuq l-aħbar u ġiet. Konna deċidejna ħdimna flimkien biex. Intalaw dan id-dokumentarju ovvjament. Sodisfatti bil-prodott li ħareġ u jagħti daqsxejn stampa differenti u behind the scenes tal-ħajja tagħna ta' kuljum. U l-dokumentarju wasal għand in-nies sewwa ħafna naħseb u tipo kuntenti.
Juri fil-verità dak li għaddi minnu dak li jkun li forsi ftit.
Hija ħafna drabi.
Dettall.
Ħafna drabi eżatt naraw il-faċċata naraw. Dak li del fuq television però ovvjament l-ħajja ta' kuljum hija ferm differenti. Minn ġast stampa. Jew still sekonda dak li ħin min. Mhix daqshekk faċli l-ħajja u ovvjament. Nipprovaw niġġieldu kuljum.
U il-maratona tal-ħadd, forsi tgħidna daqsxejn fuq, ħanibdew minn dak li jkun fejn jista' jsegwiha.
Jista' jsegwiha fuq l-istazzjonijiet. Televiżi kollha, minn nofsinhar sa nofs il-lejl mhux kollha ħajkunu tiċandru. 12 sija però tani point in time ħassibuna live x'imkien. So jekk ma sibunix fuq l-istazzjon kemm. Jaqlbu fuq l-istazzjon ieħor jisibuna hemmhekk hemm. Ħadkun ukoll online ovvjament ħadkun live. Stream fuq Bjorn Formosa page fuq il-page ta' Lovin Malta fuq xurabank fuq Eldas Malta dar Bjorn insomma diffiċli biex temmu sjam nara l-ħadd.
Konfidenti li ħajnexxilkom tiġbru flus li hemm bżonn?
Fimlina qabel ma tantx. Nizbilanċja ruħi forsi nofs il-lejl naqsin 5 kun hija f'pożizzjoni. Nizbilanċja ruħi daqsxejn però ħedimna tajjeb ħafna minna xogħol kbir u il-feedback huwa pożittiv so hopefully. Morru tajjeb, nabda fil-ġenerosità tal-Maltin u xekka.
U jekk kollox imur sew, dar Bjorn tu għal meta?
Mit-target date hija li construction ġabberu saqfi tlesta sa end of year sal-aħħar ta' Diċembru mbagħad il-finishings kollha sal-aħħar portira tkun imdendla sal-aħħar ta' Ġunju so hopefully we'll stick to that target.
Daqt ġifieri insomma daqt.
Ejlna sa.
U kifet li ġbir proġetti għal-wara?
Proġetti għal-wara għandi 4 dejat. Pero issa għannunċu il-tar.
Għadduk minu.
Għaddu għagġeg minu, għaddu għagġeg break.
Feno.
Mbagħad daħkom bad naraw.
Nimmaġna jkollu bżonn, maġna xogħol.
U hija mela 5 minuti.
Day and night.
5 minuti break nieħdu.
5 minuti break. Ma nafx għandek xi messaġġ għall-poplu anke qabel nhar il-ħadd?
Jiena għall-poplu dejjem u dejjem kien ta' support vera tista' tinsemmawa. Bħala klixé però fimni finalment. Mingħajr support tal-poplu ma tagħmel xejn u ċert mill-ġenerosità tal-Maltin li nhar il-ħadd ħadu kollha flimkien ħad deliverja proġett nazzjonali għal kulħadd għal kull min jista' jiġi. Din it-tip ta' għajnuna.
Bjorn Formosa, thank you very much. That's it from us. Thank you very much for following and have an evening full of loving.